Hello, I'm Fatimah, CEO at Agile Management Office. In a recent LinkedIn poll, I asked what you wanted to hear or see more of from Agile Management Office. And one of the things that you asked for is more case study type webinars or videos in this instance. And so I wanted to share a little bit more about some of the things that we have identified through our review service over the last few years. And for today, we're going to talk about the information and knowledge management capability and how we helped an organization to untangle their mess. We've undertaken many reviews for customers over the last 4 or 5 years, and it's a real big opportunity for customers to ultimately see what is going on in amongst the weeds. Executives are really busy and don't have time to look at every single aspect of the business, particularly when they are down in the weeds. And so we help bring that perspective to an executive at the helicopter view of where they're mostly sitting. When we undertake reviews, we utilize a specific process that we've developed over many years. And that process has enabled us to not only help employees and contractors alike open up, but also share insights, because our process end to end is completely anonymous, which means we're finding out what is going wrong, what is going right, what opportunities there are, areas of strength, areas of weakness, and really the areas that require the most attention in order to help move your business forward. By doing so, we are able then to provide some recommendations in moving forward. So let's look at some real life examples of the observations and feedback and learnings that we've collated through these reviews with customers over the years. Some of these feedback points range from different types of customers, but ultimately they are customers who have shared these insights and have helped them to move forward in resolving them. And I'll go through that example as well. So what did the teams share with us through this review process? And remember, all the feedback that they share is anonymously collated, so there's no reference to who said what, but ultimately their voices are heard. The feedback that we received from several clients relates to the use of knowledge and information systems such as network drives, SharePoint, Confluence, Jira, all different tools that they are using. And in some organizations, there's an abundance of tools that are being brought in and used at quite significant speeds right now, but nobody is stopping to think about how these processes and the use of these tools talk to each other. And so within some of the clients that we speak to, they ultimately don't have a framework or an approach for how document management happens in their organization, or perhaps they do and it's outdated. Or maybe the document management process, like for one client, existed, but it was so out of date and nobody actually knew about it. So people then started making their own assumptions around how to use these tools, regardless of the fact that they themselves may not be in line with other parts of the organization. So effectively, it starts to cause a little bit of a tangled mess. In knowledge and information management as well, we found that a lot of the time, in particular, one organization that I recall in the last 5 years had quite a high turnover of staff, and they had quite a high turnover of project managers. And every time a project manager came in, regardless of how amazing the content or the ideas that they bring in, because there was no way to actually absorb that, track that, put it into a knowledge base of some sort, it actually left every time that person or those people were leaving the organization. So it left somewhat gaps. When we think about knowledge and information management as well, there's quite a significant burden of administration in some areas when information is not managed well or within a consistent manner. And that is evident with another client of ours who introduced Confluence to their teams, and they did that in parallel whilst there was a complete revamp of SharePoint happening at the same time, but they were being done in 2 different teams. So what ended up happening is you had half the department using Confluence and learning how to use Confluence and spending time really getting up to speed with how wikis work and how lists work and how all of the things that that product can do for them. But then you've got the other side of the team where a lot of the governance people were using SharePoint and requiring information that was actually listed on Confluence and vice versa. So it actually caused quite a bit of confusion, and it was really because the two teams were working in isolation and there was no central information and knowledge management approach for them in order to move forward. And ultimately, when we look at reporting, project managers are required to report on their status of projects. Depending on what type of organization, sometimes there might be reporting in more than one place. Some project managers are reporting in project portfolio management tools, as well as in a PowerPoint to appease a PMO, and maybe even in another type of format to support the requirements of their manager or GM, whatever it might be. And so the feedback that we got from these teams is they were quite frustrated and really wanted to have a more consistent collaborative approach that everybody was supportive of. And it's not saying that one tool was right and that one tool was what they were going to be using, but it needed to have a consistent way moving forward. So let's talk about how we did that. So first of all, for the different clients, we approach it depending on their particular situation. But for some of our clients, we help to outline the use of tools such as SharePoint, Confluence, Shared Drive, etc. For some of them, we put together frameworks to help outline how to use these tools and for what purposes. Some organizations prefer to use SharePoint for governance only, governance, traceability, historical purposes, auditability. Then other organizations prefer to use products like Confluence for team collaboration and wikis, for example. So there's a lot of different uses of the different tools. So it's not about dictating which tool is the right one or how to use it and being really rigid about that. It's about collating the feedback from the teams and then bringing together an approach to move forward. And ultimately, sometimes that is also about putting in place things like deliverables traceability matrices, which helps the delivery team to align to what the governance requirements are of a project lifecycle, for example. One organization, we helped to introduce a centralized mailbox, and that was something that streamlined information coming into the governance function, which meant that when, Joe, Mary, Michael, whoever it was in the team was away, that information wasn't getting forgotten in their mailbox, particularly when they were on leave for extended periods of time. And so there is a lot of different ways that we can approach information and knowledge management, and it's really about understanding what's right for that organization, their maturity, and also what their end results are. It's really important that ultimately we have a framework or an approach, and a framework is simply the inputs, the outputs, the throughputs of that particular capability. So when it comes to information and knowledge management, we effectively help an organization develop what is considered the minimum needed for them to be effective, and then provide them a suggested roadmap to continuously improve. Because let's face it, not every organization can afford to have licenses for all of the different tools out there. Sometimes it's a matter of just starting from one and then building up from there. And another thing we like to do when it comes to information and knowledge management is we help these clients to build out a library, a clarified, consistent project document library that meant that when a project manager was going to create a status report, for example, they weren't creating a new template every single time. So it provided consistency. And that library then linked back up to the deliverables traceability matrix. So there's a lot of different things that you can do, but these were sort of the after effects as a result of the feedback that we got from customers. So we think about what they said and the issues that they have. We listen to them, because ultimately your customers are also your stakeholders, and we want to make sure that your stakeholders, who are your team members, are happy, because then they will in turn make your external customers happy. And so we take clients from the feedback they received, often it's a tangled mess, through to a lot more consistency, a lot more coordination, and a lot more collaboration, which is what underpins the AMO method, our 3 C's. We do that with tools and templates. Sometimes we might introduce methods, and sometimes we will introduce processes to really help make sure that people understand how those things apply. The best part is we do it collaboratively. So we don't dictate what's been working for other organizations and say that this is the cookie cutter approach to doing information and knowledge management. No, we personalize it to suit your specific environment. And on a final note, when it comes to information and knowledge management, I'm not sure if you run a project tools monopoly in your organization, but something to think about. The more tools that you introduce, the more complexity and the more confusion that you're likely going to introduce. Some people prefer to bring in tools because that's what they're comfortable with based on other organizations they've worked at. But you really need to make sure that you have a streamlined roadmap, just like you would if you're an enterprise architect looking at the organization overall. Really having a think about that from a project management perspective is also very important. So a few tips: communicate openly, understanding what it is that's necessary before we make any changes. That's important with any change that you want to make in an organization. Showcasing your wares, making sure that we are providing regular feedback, not just asking customers what they want and then hoping that what we deliver at the end is what they've asked for. No, providing constant communication and opportunities for improvement. And then finally, not reinventing the wheel. When consultancies sometimes go into organizations, they may often introduce products or tools that they've brought from their arsenal of, highly developed products and tools. But if there's things that exist in the organization, maybe there's products and tools that can be leveraged, let's look at improving them as opposed to replacing them. So that's it on information and knowledge management. I hope you enjoyed that, and I would be happy to answer any questions. If you have any feedback, please share in the comments or on LinkedIn. We're keen to help you. So if you've got some challenges in this space, reach out to us at the details on the screen now.